Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. It's Drew here. Today's episode, we are going to answer the question, do I need to be taking a protein supplement? Now, a lot of people get confused about this one because they think protein supplements are primarily for getting big or getting bulky or for athletes, but not often the case. In fact, more often than not, I recommend clients, members of the general population, consume a protein supplement in the form of a protein powder. Now, I'm going to go through the reasons why in just a second. I'm also going to talk through what to look for in a protein powder. So you can decipher between what's a good quality protein powder and what perhaps isn't such a good quality protein powder. And then I'll talk a little bit about dosage as well. So let's kick right off and let's talk about, do you need to be taking a protein supplement? Now, the answer to this question is obviously very, very individualized. It depends on your scenario. But let me talk through a few scenarios in which I would recommend that you consume a protein supplement in the form of a protein powder. Now, I do need to just make note at the start that a protein supplement, I'm primarily talking about a protein powder. Whilst you can get other protein supplements such as protein bars and protein balls, generally they're full of fillers and things to stabilize them, and often a lot of hidden calories as well. So more often than not, in a protein bar or in a protein ball, they'll have, natural sweeteners, but things like dates, coconut oil, nuts, which are all healthy foods in their own right, but more often than not, they can really add calories to the protein ball or the protein bar. So generally, I say steer clear of those kinds of foods. In those scenarios, you're much better off with a protein powder because there's very, very few fillers in protein powders these days. You can get really, really high quality ones that you can mix with water, or if you really need, you can mix with some unsweetened almond milk or oat milk or something like that to make it a really delicious shake, and you've got minimal calories for maximum protein. So that's what I'll say at the start. Protein powder is what we're referring to most of the time here. So do you need to be taking a protein powder? Again, it's very individualized. It depends on your scenario, but the scenarios in which I recommend that people do consume a protein powder are if you are exercising frequently, predominantly completing resistance training, strength training, 3 times a week, 2, 3, 4 times a week, something like that. If you are performing resistance training at that level, that is quite a high load on the body and on the muscle tissue. So if you are one of these individuals, more often than not, you will benefit from consuming a protein powder. And the reason being is your protein requirements, your dietary protein requirements increase rapidly the more you strength train. So they're much greater than members of the general population who don't strength train. They go right up to about 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of your body weight per day. And that's the amount of grams of protein you should be consuming. So for a typical, if you're 80 kilos, for example, and you're strength training 3 times a week, 4 times a week, you need 120 grams of protein per day. And that's quite difficult to consume, to eat for most people. It's quite a lot of meat and quite a lot of protein-rich foods. And some people just don't have the time, the cooking skills, or they don't enjoy lots of meat-based foods, in which case a protein powder is a really great substitute to help boost the protein. So if you are strength training, 3 times, 2, 3, 4 times a week, something like that, or more often than not, 90% of the time, you would benefit from some form of protein. Of course, there are the outliers who are more than happy to, consume lots of meat products or lots of high protein foods. They have the time to cook it, they have the money to prepare it and all that sort of stuff. So more often than not, you could benefit from a protein supplement. The second population group is the athletic population group. These people are the people that are exercising at a high intensity, at a high level, most days of the week, their protein requirements are increased even still from the previous requirements we were just talking about. Their protein requirements can be up to 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So that 80 kilo individual will be now up to 160 grams of protein per day, which is a really high level, and it's a lot of food to eat. And, when you factor in time of cooking, time of preparation, time of consuming meals, it really adds up when you do need to eat a lot of food. So a protein supplement is a really quick and easy way to get good quality protein in instantly. And the athletic population group, again, more often than not, would really benefit from consuming a protein powder. I guess the third population group is the time poor. The time poor, the preparation poor, or the ones that lack, I guess, the cooking skills really to prepare really well-rounded protein-rich meals. And this is very common. I see this a lot, is people, they might be quite confident cooking more carbohydrate-based meals, things like pasta, for example. They might be really competent with doing that, really confident. And it also might be what the kids like. And consuming lots of isolated protein foods, meat being the primary source, just isn't really a viable option. So if you're time poor, or if your cooking skills are quite low or limited, or just if you just haven't got the ability to consume or prepare large amounts of protein-rich foods, it's completely okay. There's nothing wrong with not having a lot of animal product in your diet as such, but ensuring we are getting adequate dietary protein is essential. And again, a supplement is a really great way of supplementing your diet with protein, and adding really high quality protein and a very healthy product into your diet. And I guess the fourth population group is, vegans and vegetarians, where, we exclude the whole animal product, I guess, a food, group. And, whilst you can get adequate dietary protein from plant-based products, it is more difficult, much more difficult, particularly for the vegans. It is much more difficult, and it's really important that we are protein combining. So combining different forms of plant-based proteins in one meal in order to get a complete protein with a complete amino acid profile, which is really important for the regeneration of muscle tissue, and for the building and repair process as well. So really, really important that, this population group focuses on protein intake. That we know there's certain amino acids that are important for, the rebuilding of muscle tissue, the repair of muscle tissue, and therefore the muscle growth benefits, or the preservation benefits, or the performance benefits that come off the back of that. And we know a lot of plant-based proteins are low in the amino acids required. So combining protein sources for vegans and vegetarians is absolutely crucial. But again, it's very difficult calorie for calorie to consume high amounts of protein, particularly if you are one of the population groups that resistance trains, again, 2, 3, 4 times a week or more. The athletic population group, who are exercising most day at intensity. Really difficult to achieve high protein status in these population groups if you are vegan or vegetarian. Not impossible. It's not impossible, but it's difficult to achieve. So I think a protein supplement for this population group is probably the most crucial, just to ensure adequate protein, just to cover off that base. There are lots of really high quality vegan protein powders these days that combine different vegan protein sources to ensure a complete protein, and they're very, very, very easily accessible these days. There's lots around. You can get really good tasting ones. So gone are the days where it felt like you were drinking soil. So I think they're the 4 main population groups that could benefit from consuming a protein supplement. Now, if we kind of quash some of the, I guess, misconceptions about protein supplements. I remember, 10 years ago when I first started out in the nutrition game, and I remember a client's mum threw out a tub of protein powder because she thought it was steroid. And, it was the fact that she thought that protein powders were only for bodybuilders and only for people who wanted to get really big muscles. And she threw it out, and he was absolutely distraught because at the time it was, $100 a tub. It's really important to remember that protein is for so much more in the human body than just for muscle growth. Whilst we know muscle and the preservation of muscle and the growth of new muscle is so important for human health outcomes and for metabolic disease prevention and for, mobility and strength of the body and functional capacity. Protein has so many roles in the body, for skin and hair and nails and all kinds of human connective tissue. And it's really, really important to not focus on just the muscle benefits of having a protein supplement or for consuming adequate dietary protein. So, for the vegans and the vegetarians amongst us primarily who generally, focus more on carbohydrate-rich foods and fiber-rich foods, which is great. It's really important not to forget the absolute huge amounts of benefit that protein has on the human body. And as far as, can you consume too much protein? I mean, you can consume too much of anything, but it's very, very difficult to consume the amounts of protein that you would need to have a detrimental effect to the human body. It would almost be impossible to consume. We would be talking kilos of meat per day. I think there would be many, many other disadvantages or health outcomes that would come off the back of that before excessive protein would arise, So you really can't consume too much of it. But in saying that, there's no benefit of consuming excessive amounts of protein. You kind of find out what your current goals are and what your current physical activity status is, and you can calculate your requirements off the back of that. So there's the 4 main population groups that would really benefit from consuming a protein supplement. I think it's really important to focus on consuming adequate dietary protein for almost every single member of the population who's doing, exercise and particularly resistance exercise. As far as what to look out for when consuming or when purchasing, I should say, a protein supplement, a protein powder, you want to look for as few ingredients as possible. So if we look at a vegan protein powder, for example, there's many different ones you can get these days with different forms of vegan protein. You can get pea protein, rice protein, soy protein, fava bean protein, hemp protein. There's all kinds of proteins you can get that are vegan sources now, and you will find the majority of them will combine different sources of vegan protein, and that is to ensure complete protein and to boost the amino acid profile of the protein. So when you're looking at ingredients, you do want to see multiple sources of vegan-based proteins within the product. It really does show that that manufacturers put thought into, combining those proteins to get a really high amino acid profile. But other than that, you don't want to see too many fillers and stabilizers and sweeteners and things within the product itself. So you really want to be looking for, no artificial colors or flavors, as few stabilizers as possible. Sweeteners, be really careful with these because some of them hide sugar within the product. They'll name it something slightly different, but just be careful with that as well. And again, as few ingredients as possible will really ensure that the product is clean, if you want to call it that, and health promoting, and that's the main thing. So when you're looking at a vegan protein, you want to be looking at something that's about 80% protein. So if you look at the nutritional panel at the back of the product, you look at the per 100 gram column, and the protein section should be around about 80 grams. So that means 80% of that product is protein. Anything less than that, when you're getting to 70% and less, there's more than likely fillers within that product to either make it really tasty or to stabilize the product. So really look for something 80% and above. That's a really good quality vegan protein. When we're looking at whey proteins, there's a few different kinds of whey proteins, and there's going to be different price points of these whey proteins as well based on the quality of the protein. So you've got WPI, which is whey protein isolate. This is a really high quality of protein. And the whey protein isolate has a really strong amino acid profile, and therefore it's great for muscle recovery and for muscle growth. And then you've got WPC, which is whey protein concentrate, which is also a really high quality form of protein, but a slower digested form of protein. So really great for smoothies and snacks in between meals. And then you'll also find a casein protein, which is an even slower digested form of protein, which, members of the athletic population primarily will have at nighttime. So they get an amino acid release before bed whilst they're sleeping, helps with muscle recovery. But for the general person, the WPI, whey protein isolate, or WPC, whey protein concentrate, is absolutely enough. Really, really high quality sources of protein. And again, you want to be looking out for as few ingredients as possible. And again, it should be 80% or above in protein. So that per 100 gram column on the nutritional label should be 80 grams of protein or above. And last point, guys, on protein supplements is dosage. So a dosage is really going to depend on, again, individual factors, how much you're training, what your goals are, etc. But as a general rule of thumb, one serving of protein powder per day is often ample for most people. They can often consume the rest of the protein from food that they eat, but that sort of 25 grams of protein in a hit of protein powder really helps to boost protein intake with very few calories. So you normally find about 120 to 130 calories when mixed with water in a serving of protein powder. So you're getting a really good hit of protein for almost no calories. And one of these per day is absolutely perfect, and in fact quite a healthy boost to the diet. When you're getting a supplement that contains no fillers and no artificial colors or flavors or anything like that, it really is a very beneficial product to be consuming. In saying that, I've seen people consume a couple of scoops of protein powder per day, which is completely acceptable. Again, don't think of this as a drug. It's not a drug. It's simply a powdered version of whatever protein form that's within that product. So for whey, it's a dairy derived product, and for the vegans, it could be pea or rice or fava bean or whatever it may be. It's just ground up versions of those products. So it's by no means a drug. It is a food product. Again, don't rely on supplements as a food source, as a sole food source. Of course, you need to be consuming, food, real food. But protein supplements definitely have a place amongst the exercising population, particularly those that resistance train, and particularly the athletic population as well. So there's absolute merit to consuming protein supplements, guys, and don't be fearful of consuming them. It really is a great way of boosting protein intake. And I guess the real way to determine whether or not you individually require a protein supplement is just to log the food you're eating and measure how much protein you are currently consuming versus what the recommendations are, based on previous podcasts that I've done on protein requirements. And then you'll get a really good idea of whether or not you should add a protein supplement into your routine to help boost levels or not. Guys, really hope you got a lot out of this one. It's a question I get asked a lot, protein supplements, so I really hope I answered some of those questions in the episode today, and absolutely can't wait for the next episode. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll speak to you soon.